Hey class, here we are again, and we have a lesson from Unit 9 that we're going to be working on today. It is the writing lesson, and I think what we'll do is, you see me here right now, but what's going to happen is I'm going to disappear in just a minute. I have the lesson on a PowerPoint, so you will hear my voice, but you won't see me after a minute or so, okay? I will pull that up in just a minute. But to begin with, last time Lori did the reading lesson with you. And also, if you think back to our grammar lesson, in our grammar lessons, we've been talking about cause and effect. And we've been talking about language that we use to talk about cause and effect. And so today you're going to be writing a cause and effect paragraph. And let's go ahead and look at that right now. So we're on Unit 9, Lesson E. And in your book, it's pages 118 to 119. And in fact, let me, just so everybody sees it for just a minute, let's go back to me. It's this page where we have our writing lesson. So you should see this picture here with all the bad smog coming out of those factories. All right, so let's go back to the lesson here. So Unit 9, Lesson E, pages 118 through 119. Your goal, the objective actually, is to write a cause and effect paragraph. So let's go ahead. Now, before you write, look at that picture on page 118. And what is the environmental problem that you see there? All right, now just think about it for a minute. I already mentioned the word smog, and smog is a word that I believe we learned in this lesson. And it's when a factory produces this exhaust or this smoke, which is bad for the air. It's bad for humans, it's bad for animals, it's bad for our breathing, it's bad for the ozone, and it has negative effects for all sorts of people. So why is it a problem? Think about that for a minute. And again, we're only thinking about this right now because we're thinking about causes and effects. So why is it a problem? And then think about number 3, how does this problem hurt people or the environment? That's the effect, right? So why is it a problem? Well, it produces all of this smoke. We might call it exhaust or smog. And it affects the environment. Again, we mentioned ozone, but this gets us to number 3, into effects. How does the problem hurt people or the environment? And I've already touched on that already. I've already talked about that. It can affect our breathing. It can affect the ozone, which causes global warming or lends to that. And so it can cause the temperature of the earth to rise. So these are the effects. All right. Now, what we're going to do now, if you go on to the next part, is you're going to read the paragraph that they have for you. And this is the paragraph. What I want you to do is I want you to read along with me. I will read it slowly. You listen to how I read it. And I want you to go ahead and just listen and follow along with me. And as always, when we read something, mark words you don't know and look them up. Again, we're not together, so we can't discuss them, but you can look them up in a dictionary, or you can use Google if you want. And then the main thing I want you to notice, though, because this is our writing lesson, I want you to notice how the paragraph is organized. Now, we talked about paragraph organization before, months ago. Always remember there's a topic sentence, okay? Normally the first sentence for what we're doing. And because this is a cause and effect paragraph, the body of the paragraph will be made up of causes and effects. There will be a discussion of causes, and then there will be the effects that come out of those causes. Okay, so as you read in your book on page 118, you might want to mark these because they will help you think about how the paragraph is ordered and structured. Okay, so here it is: the causes and effects of smog. Smog is a serious environmental problem in my city. One cause is that there are too many cars on the roads and highways. Most of the cars have only one person, the driver. People seem to take a lot of unnecessary trips. They drive to the drugstore instead of walking 2 blocks. Another cause of smog in my city is that we use too much electricity. Since many homes are not energy efficient, our city's power plant has to produce more electricity. The burning coal from the power plant produces more air pollution. The smog is thick, so the air is hard to breathe. Consequently, on many days it is unsafe for children and senior citizens to be outside. Smog also kills many trees and plants that produce oxygen and clean the air. If people drove less and used less electricity, I am sure our air quality would improve. Now, excuse me just a minute. Now, take a look at that paragraph. You have your topic sentence, which I'm sure you have already noticed, which is smog is a serious environmental problem in my city. So we know the topic. We know that we're talking about smog. It's a problem. And so one way to talk about problems is to talk about the causes and then the effect. So they start off, next sentence. One cause is that there are too many cars on the roads and highways. Now, that's sentence number 2. If you look at the next sentence, which says, most of the cars have only one person, the driver, this is not another cause we're talking about. This is just adding detail to explain more about that cause. So it's trying to show you why there are too many cars on the roads. It's because often people are not sharing rides. They're not carpooling, we call it. There's only one person in a car. And so it creates more traffic and more cars, puts more cars on the road. And then it adds another detail. People seem to take a lot of unnecessary trips. So instead of, in the next sentence it says, instead of walking 2 blocks, they drive 2 blocks, which is not very far. You can walk easily to the drugstore, for example. So those details are we say, elaborating. They're giving you more explanation about that cause. Again, what's the cause of the smog? There are too many cars on the roads. Okay? And this goes on to explain why there are too many cars, right? But then you have a transition. Remember, we've talked about transition before. You have a word here, another. If you look in the next sentence, it says, another cause of smog in my city is that we use too much electricity. So the first one was there's too many cars on the road. The second one, we use too much electricity. And then the next sentence is another detail, but this time, this detail is about the too much electricity being used. So it says, since many homes are not energy efficient, our city's power plant has to produce more electricity. That just means because our homes maybe they don't hold inside warm air in the winter or cool air in the summer, we are using our air conditioner more, or we use the heater, the furnace more in the winter. And so they run a lot, and those use a lot of power, a lot of electricity. So our homes are not energy efficient. And so it causes us to use more electricity. And that produces more smog. So, and then the next sentence is also a detail. The burning coal from the power plant produces more air pollution. So because we're using more electricity in our homes, there's more, there's more coal being burned. Coal is that kind of black rock from the earth that we burn to produce the electricity. And that produces air pollution. Now, the next sentences move on into the consequences or the effects. So what is the effect or the consequence? Well, the smog is thick, and so the air is hard to breathe. Consequently, on many days, it's unsafe for children or senior citizens to be outside. And then, that's not all. The smog also kills many trees and plants that produce oxygen and clean the air. So it kills plants. It makes it hard for children and older people to breathe, or it's unsafe for them. And then, of course, there's the closing sentence. If people drove less and used less electricity, I'm sure our air quality would improve. Now, if you look again on page 118 in part C, they tell you to complete the graphic organizer. And it looks kind of like this. I could not make my organizer look just like the one in your book, but you'll notice that I have at the top, the problem is smog. Now, what this graphic organizer does, we've used things like this before, is it just helps you see the order and the organization of the paragraph. The problem is smog. That's going to be identified in your topic sentence. But then you need two causes. Okay, what are two causes of the smog? We just read about those. So for one, you had too many cars on the road, and the other one, we used too much electricity. And then the details, you'll notice you have two details for the first cause and two for the next cause. And then you have the effects. So remember, these organizers, really it's an outline, we call it. These are really important to do before you write. It's really important to think about how you're going to organize your paragraph before you actually start writing it on paper. It helps make your writing better. It makes it clearer and more understandable. It helps you write with more order so that the people reading your writing can follow it more easily. If you just start writing whatever comes out of your mind, then a lot of times that writing will not have organization, and it makes it hard for the people reading it to understand what you're saying. It will be unclear what you're trying to say. It will be confused sometimes what you're trying to say because you have not thought about it beforehand what it is you want to say. So what they want you to do here in part C is to complete this graphic organizer using the information from the paragraph. Okay, so I want you to do that right now. At the bottom of page 118, finish the graphic organizer is just a way of outlining that paragraph using the information from the paragraph we read in part B. And I want you to pause right now. And in a few minutes after you finish, come back, and then I will have it written up here on the screen. Okay? Okay. Now we're back. Let's look at what your graphic organizer should look like. Oh, well, I did not do what I thought I did. Okay, that's okay. Well, the first cause, we already said is too many cars. The second cause is too much electricity being used. Let's see if I can do this really fast. Let's just do this way. Here I am again. I'm going to make myself small. Whoops. And let's pull this back up because I can actually do this right here. It's going to not look right though, but that's okay. So the problem is smog. The first problem you should have identified in that paragraph is too many cars on the road. The second cause is too much electricity being used. Okay? Now, I'm going to have to break with the way this is organized. How they have two details for the first cause, just because I can't fit it on my screen, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. The first detail for the too many cars is there's one person using one car, rather than people carpooling or something like that. And then there's also people who take unnecessary trips. Again, instead of walking 2 blocks, you drive 2 blocks. Then, again, there is the cause. The next cause is too much electricity is being used, and that's why we have smog. So the first detail for that one is homes are not energy efficient. And then the next detail is, because of that, power plants burn a lot more coal. Okay? So again, let's see if I can just do this. These are not, so it's not exactly how it should look, but something like that. So these first two details go with this first cause. They help explain that cause. These next two details help explain the second cause. Okay? And then finally, what are the effects? Well, you go back to the paragraph. The first effect is the air is hard to breathe. Okay? It says the smog, if you remember, it says the smog is thick, and so the air becomes hard to breathe. And so the next effect then is it makes things unsafe for the elderly and I'll just say the young children. I'll do this again. And then lastly, the last effect, the print is getting, type is getting really small, is it kills plants and trees. Which, remember, plants and trees, they clean the air and produce oxygen. So that's a problem. So again, this is just a graphic organizer to help you think about the order of your paragraph so that you communicate what you want to say clearly and in an organized way so the person reading it they don't have trouble understanding what you're trying to say. They understand it because it's clear, it's orderly, and it makes sense. Okay? Now, what you're going to do, if you turn to the top of page 119, you see me down here, you'll see this. Now you're going to plan your own paragraph. And it says, plan a paragraph about an environmental problem in your city or community. Include the causes and effects of the problem. Use the graphic organizer to make notes on your ideas. So just like we just did, you're going to use this graphic organizer to plan your paragraph and organize it before you write. Okay? So that what you write is clear, and what you write is understandable and ordered and makes sense. Okay? So you have to choose an environmental problem. Okay? I know that can be hard to think about what that might even be. So what I'm going to do now is let me show you an example. I did one of these for myself. I planned my own paragraph with my own graphic organizer here. Hopefully you can see this. And the problem I wanted to write about is water pollution. Okay. So what's one cause of water pollution? I thought litter or trash. Litter is another word, if you don't know, for trash. Sometimes you may see on the side of a trash can or a sign in a park or somewhere it says don't litter. That means don't throw your trash on the ground. Put it in the trash can. Okay? So one cause of water pollution is litter or trash. A second one, just in general, are toxic substances. So you may know toxic, you may not. Toxic means like poisonous or dangerous. There are substances, chemicals that we use on plants and things I'll talk about in just a minute that get in our water and can affect us and animals. Now, again, the first two details here are about my first cause. They explain or give more information about this first cause, which is litter or trash. So the first detail is people don't use trash cans. And there's a city park near my house, and people don't use trash cans. There'll often be litter on the ground, or there's a pond at this park, and especially when it rains, you can see all if there's a lot of water that's rushing through, because the pond is kind of a creek actually, but it rushes through the pond or the creek, and it all gathers in one place. It's very dirty and gross. My next detail is here, this trash that's left in public places, it ends up in the water. The wind blows, and it gets into the water, and it's just dirty, and it looks bad, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, my next cause of water pollution is toxic substances. And so this detail here, remember, these details go with this cause. These details go with this cause. This detail is explaining more about toxic substances. So I say insecticides are put on plants, and then when it rains, they get washed off and they go down into the groundwater. Now, insecticides, you might see in this word insect. These are poisons used to kill bugs, so they don't eat your plants or your flowers or your vegetables you're trying to grow. We use these here in the United States, and so, but they're really poisonous, and they're not good for humans either. It's just that it's small amounts that are washing off, and so we may not feel the effect all at one time, but over time it can affect you. And then the next detail is I use a different one, actually. Medicines, prescriptions that doctors give you, people just throw them away in the trash. Sometimes they wash them down the sink, and those can end up in your water. So in that way, even though they're medicines, they're not medicines that you need, and so they are toxic. They can be poisonous. So there are proper ways to throw away your medicine, and there are people who take them, but most of the time we just throw them away. So, but those can go into landfills where trash is kept once it leaves your house, and they go throw it in a big dump. And again, water is a solvent. It dissolves things. And so the medicines can creep down into the water, to the groundwater, and they get into our drinking water. And then even certain kinds of medicines can get into the lakes and oceans, and fish are affected by them too. So what are the effects? Well, the first effect, which has to do with the litter or the trash, it makes our public spaces just ugly. It makes them not a place that you want to go. But also, the litter and the toxic substances, they both pollute drinking water. So they make our drinking water coming from the tap not as safe to drink. Now, if you drink water from the tap, you're not going to die tomorrow. You're not even going to get sick, unless there are some cities in America where this is a problem, though, unfortunately, like Flint, Michigan. But most of the time, it's treated, the water, and so it's not going to affect you. Again, this pollution happens over time, a long time, not just once. And then finally, I already mentioned another effect is these medicines affect fish and other animals, and they get into our food supply. So if we're eating those fish who have taken in some kind of prescriptions or medicines, it can affect us too because we eat fish. Okay? So again, all I'm trying to do here is plan my paragraph, just like I'm asking you to do. I wanted to write about water pollution because I see that problem in my own neighborhood, in my city. So you choose what you want to write about. The paragraph in the book is about smog. You could write about anything. If you want to give this a try, you can even Google if you need to. If you need help thinking about what would be an environmental problem I would want to write about, you can Google them and find different kinds of problems. Okay, now, lastly, what you will do after you plan your paragraph, which is part D at the top of page 119, you will then write your paragraph. Okay, and you can send me your paragraph if you want. I know, again, some of you are very busy with your kids, and so don't feel like you have to, but if you want to, if you have time, please send me your paragraph. You can text it to me, or if you want, that's probably the fastest way, and then I can just read it that way. But I wanted to show you another example paragraph, and this is one I wrote based on my outline I have here, my organizer that I used. And so this is it. So I'm going to pull this up big now so you can see it. And remember, the first line would be indented. Normally, I don't have it indented here, but where it says water pollution, that should be scooted over just a little bit. But this is what I wrote. So again, topic sentence, and I followed very closely the paragraph that's on page 118 about smog. And you can do the same thing. It's okay to copy a little bit of what you see there, because that's how you learn. Okay, so you can And by copy, I mean you can use the structure that you see there to help you write your paragraph, basically. So this is what I wrote. Water pollution is a serious environmental problem in my city. So you'll notice that topic sentence is almost exactly like their topic sentence, except I'm talking about water pollution. One cause is the amount of trash left in public places. Many people who use public parks and transportation do not throw their trash away in trash cans. Wind blows the trash they leave behind into ponds, streams, and other waterways. Another cause of water pollution is toxic substances humans use on plants or throw into the trash. Homeowners use bug killers on garden plants to protect them, but when it rains, the chemicals they use run off into ponds and streams. Prescription drugs are also thrown away and sent to landfills. That's like a garbage dump where they take all your trash. Rain then dissolves these drugs and they get into the groundwater. All of these human actions have serious effects. Leaving trash in public spaces makes our parks and streets ugly and less attractive. And chemicals that aren't thrown away properly contaminate our drinking water, and negatively affect fish and wildlife. If we all thought more about how we dispose our waste, we would have cleaner and safer water for the people and wildlife in our communities. So that's your model, this right here, or the one on page 118. I want you to find an environmental problem, and I want you to write about it, thinking about cause and effect, and writing it in the same order, okay? Just use this as your guide, or use the paragraph on page 118 as your guide about smog. And again, the point of the lesson is to think through, you have a problem. I'll come back here for a minute. There I am. You have a problem, and the problem has causes and it has effects. What causes smog? Too many cars on the road. Using too much electricity at home. What causes water pollution? People not throwing their trash away, or not people not taking care of their medicines and their prescriptions, and they're not disposing of them properly. Okay, so use this, and I hope that if you have time, you'll write something like this, send it to me. You have my number, and then I'll look it over and give you some comments. Okay. I'm glad to share this with you today. Just so you know, Lori and I plan to finish through Unit 10, even though if we were still doing school, it would be over. But we want to go ahead and finish Unit 10, which would be the end of the book, just so you have it all, and it's all here on YouTube, and you can use these lessons as you have time, even into the summer. Okay? All right. God bless you guys. Miss you, and I hope I can see you real soon. Bye-bye.